Welcome to another Figure Week, Hard Surface Week, Organic Week.
Hey everyone, my name is Ahmed Al-Douri. I'm a concept artist and former instructor at Art Center College of Design, Brainstorm, CCS, CGMA, and various other places. And I would like to introduce to you this digital painting course that I've created. But before we get into anything, I just want to thank you for the support you've all given me this whole time. And with the support of so many of you, I've been able to put together everything I know about painting into this digital painting course. You want to become a pro illustrator, concept artist, or even just a hobbyist, but you don't have a clear map to get there. And that's where I come in. I spent the last 6 months compiling everything I know from my 20 years of art practice, and I've turned it all into a map. Starting with foundations such as rendering shapes, color theory, painting basic subjects, understanding brushwork, brush economy, all that fun stuff, deconstructing the skull, drawing it from every angle, all the way to master studies, stylized painting, and you'll find yourself at the end of the course doing a concept art project based on everything that we learn in the first 14 lessons. So how does it work? Well, you sign up, you watch the lectures, do the assignments, post them to the community page if you want, and treat it as a self-study, except for those of you who have signed up for the weekly meeting, where I personally critique your work in a virtual classroom setting. I believe learning by repetition is super important. That's what I've sort of presented a lot in this course, and the assignments are tailored for that, as adapted from my time teaching at Art Center. And each of these lessons have step-by-step explanations in real time. If you've ever seen my videos, you know exactly how I teach. And this course is intended to be a substitute for a college level course, but you don't have to pay the $4,000 or $5,000 per class, racking up maybe $200K in debt. With my custom design course, you'd be paying a fraction of that. And of course, I also have payment plan options if you don't want to pay for the whole thing at once. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you soon.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Artcast. Thanks again for tuning in for another episode. I'm glad to have you guys here. I hope with everything that is going on in the world right now, everybody who's listening is staying safe. If there is anybody listening from the part of the world called Ukraine, my thoughts are definitely with you guys. It's a fucking horrible situation over there, and this has been recorded, I think, only about 3 or 4 days into the original invasion. So yeah, my guys over there, I hope you guys are staying safe. I know a lot of the guys personally who are being affected by that in this place. So yeah, my thoughts are definitely with you guys. On that kind of lay of a new episode, we're diving back into someone who is a second timer. They're very rare on this podcast. We don't really have people on multiple times, but this is someone that's definitely been 2 or 3 times on the podcast. Probably actually his third, and someone I wanted to get back on and talk to, who is Mr. Ian Vicknair. Hello Ian, how are you doing?
Good, thanks Cordy. How are you?
I'm fine, man. I'm fine. Yeah, it's a different thing now. We're doing the whole video thing. Like it's a whole other setup, because the first couple of times we done it, I was still using the old kind of just audio, but I've got your face on the screen finally. So
yeah,
good to have you back on, man.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be on. I've been wanting to get back onto podcasts a little bit and get back into being on social media with personal work. So it's definitely a nice opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. You're welcome. So yeah, a couple of years since we've talked, but you've been super busy with work. COVID's been a thing. So But, since I've spoke to you the last, you've had a bunch of really cool opportunities and stuff you've worked on, some major motion pictures, some really cool film work. And you've moved companies a couple of times, but I'm trying to mind who you were the last time we spoke. It might have been the Mill, probably even maybe just after that. But that was how far back we're talking, right? It was like a couple of companies ago. So what have you been up to?
Yeah, after the Mill, I joined Scanline. Was working remote for them, actually out of Vancouver. And during my time there, that's when I was working on Justice League and Suicide Squad, which I was really fortunate to be on because I'm a big DC fan, way more than Marvel. I mean, and Marvel's great and all, but I prefer Superman.
Everybody has a preference, yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely a little unexpected to be on two big DC shows at the same time, and it was definitely okay. To give a little back context, after working at the Mill and being on a horrifying show, let's put it that way, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do matte painting anymore. I was in my head quite a bit of like it's not what I thought the industry would be, and I didn't really know if I want to do this, and I kind of just felt a little hopeless of like, okay, I have a skill that I enjoy, but I don't know what to exactly do with it. And a really good matte painter who he doesn't have a lot of social media, Jordan, he encouraged me of just like, hey, do a few other companies, see what it's like. Don't just give up after one company. See what it's like. Give a few others a try, and every movie's different. So just give it a shot, see what happens. And getting to Scanline was great. I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. The work was great. The team was fantastic. I got to work on two great projects that I would never expected in my life to be working on a Superman movie. So that definitely is a big checklist off my bucket list. And then afterwards went straight to Pixelmondo in Toronto. And from there, I was working on, well, I think it's out of the bubble at this point, but it was Star Trek and Halo. I can't say what I worked on for either, just the fact that I'm excited to be sharing that soon because it's concept work that I again I wasn't expecting to be a part of and do, and even art direct a little bit of it.
Nice.
So I'm really excited to release that someday, eventually. And then from there, I'm now at Zoic here in Vancouver, and I'm really excited about Zoic just because since I started in matte painting, getting in, Zoic does not hire matte painters. They rarely hire them, and what was it? I think within like 5 years of looking at Zoic, I think they only hired like 3 times. So I kind of feel they're a little bit like Weta a little bit. They really don't go out of their way to go and get people. So I do feel a bit fortunate that I'm at this company and at a place that doesn't recruit specifically for matte painters. So I do feel quite a bit fortunate of that. So a lot's happened in the last 2 years since COVID, of just from Scanline, Pixo, now here in Vancouver at Zoic, and looking to stay here for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, even back then when I was talking to you a couple of years back, it was mostly Photoshop, Nuke, maybe even a bit of Maya. You were kind of, digging in a little bit early on, and you're just kind of starting to make stuff. But what's your process now for matte painting? Is it kind of similar, or is there a lot of stuff that's changed? Right. That's fine. I mean, if you've got your whole pipeline and you're happy with it, then you don't have to be changing it constantly. I mean, I think that's almost a thing we talked about earlier, right? Where, especially in me with environment art, like I see a lot of people now who are younger and hungrier. Have already mastered Blender. I've picked up, asset packs on the the Megascan stuff, and using that quite rapidly in their stuff. And
Yeah.
even a lot of 3D concept guys I know who most of the work is 3D, not a lot of 2D, because time, money. So
yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty much Photoshop and Nuke based. I quite frankly prefer it. And with it, I'm kind of using it as a strategy just for myself, for my career and business, just because everyone now is 3D. So you don't really get a lot of good actual 2D people at all, quite often.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it just specifically just to kind of have that advantage point a little bit of like, hey, here's a really good Photoshop artist who can also do complex nuke projections and do nuke work with it. Because even from being in other studios, you don't really see matte painters who can do really high-end nuke work or high-end Photoshop work. They can do a little bit of the patches and whatnot, which is totally fine, but you do get some who can do very in-depth paintings, which are always kind of remarkable to see. So I try to stick more to that specifically just because I enjoy it. It makes me happy. And it really allows me just to do what I want. And it kind of lets me segue away from what the rest of the world's doing a little bit, which is the whole let's go and learn everything and be everything. I don't prefer it very much.
I mean, like you said, you probably got to the point in your career where you really didn't have to cater to everybody. Then you have to be bending over backwards to learn stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you're happy, you're happy. I mean, I know people will. It depends what your end goals is, especially within Matt. I mean, especially if you want to work on, like you said, Boba Fett, or there's something that comes up like a show that you're dying to work on. So you'll sacrifice, you'll change your stuff or your MO because you want to work on a specific thing. But if you're happy with the money you're making, the place you're working, like there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, even I'm the same. Like the job I have just now is not my dream job in a sense that it was the first place I wanted to go. Like it's not Blizzard and it's not this or that. But I'm getting to work with people I love. The money's really good. Like I make a decent living. I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's the end of it. That's all you really need.
Yeah, I think that's the end goal for a lot of people. Just do what makes you happy, and don't stray from it, and adjust what you need in your life to feed that happiness. And I'm only now starting to really, because of COVID, understand that a little bit. Because after listening to like Ash Thorpe's podcast all the time, he always talks about feeding the side of your life that lets you be happy and finding that balance. And I never quite understood it until like really getting into VFX, and then having to identify for myself of like what makes you happy, and getting into that, and then exploiting those areas to benefit it. So that's what I'm just trying to do with my life a little bit, and it's one of the reasons why I moved to Vancouver, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, so many people I know who have worked in the film industry. We've talked about a couple of them off recording, but so many of them I know who have left the bigger companies and have only worked in film for a couple of years, and they just left because it's like you can't do that race forever. It's so intense that especially in the film industry, you maybe only get maybe one or two projects under your belt, then you'll probably be so burnt out you'll want to just leave. Because energy just drops. There's nothing left. I mean, with games, I think it's a bit easier sometimes, no easier, but like more paced because it's like a steady sprint, not a marathon. Like, you've got a 5-year stretch, you're going to make a game start to finish. So there's no this thing where like shots need to be done in a week, something needs to be turned around in a month, last minute, like, films are like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And very few artists in the film industry get the time to develop a shot. Rarely do they get that. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I've been sticking just with Photoshop and Nuke, because it's like I've kind of noticed being the person who can do everything, you get that expectation instantly of, oh, you have to do it by tomorrow, everything. Where being specialized, I really try to encourage people to be specialized, because you get companies coming for you just for that one thing. Like it's why I got hired by Pixo. They, in the interview, were like, hey, your planets are really good. We didn't know that was personal work. We thought you actually did that for a movie. It looks that good. And I was just like, I can't believe I'm that comment. Jesus. Okay. Like, yeah. What do you guys need? Oh, you need planets. Obviously your person.
Yeah.
And it totally fed into that. So I think it's kind of good to be very specialized, find what you're good at, and own it quite a bit.
Yeah, that was the Star Wars planets you done, right? The Naboo and the Tatooine ones.
Yeah, it was those ones, and the few that I did for even Peter Pan.
Right.
That one actually was the one that got me the job at Pixel.
Oh, nice.
And it wasn't really expected of just that. So it definitely has allowed me to have the opportunities that I've been wanting a bit as well. So I really try to encourage people, like, be specialized.
Yeah. And obviously the power of personal projects has been like a broken record on this podcast, but yeah, so many people talk about it that so many people have been hired through stuff they've done that isn't work related. Which is very it's positive in a sense, but it doesn't mean that you have to constantly be pushing stuff out just because in the hopes of getting a job. I think if you're less thinking about like even the fact when I got hired at by Fabricated Madness, like the stuff that really caught Matt's eye was the game jams I done on my own time, because he was kind of surprised about the turnaround, like I done them so quickly and the quality was still decent. So he was kind of like, yeah, we're looking to build like a 3D world. Like I really love, like I've looked at your games, I really love to make something like that. And that was the whole reason that Matt really hired me. So I wasn't really thinking about the time. I mean, I was thinking at the time it was going to give me experience and working in a game, pushing something out, finishing a game and publishing something. But not that like, a couple of months later, somebody would be like, oh, cool, do you want to come work for me? So yeah. And then that's obviously led to more and more opportunities, and the stuff I've done for Matt's led to other stuff. So yeah, it's one of these things where you just never know when the opportunities are coming, and it's just good to be constantly training yourself and doing that stuff.
And you can really see people who are really hungry for trying to figure things out and learn stuff by doing personal work versus those who, quite frankly, have given up really quickly. And I do like being able to do personal projects quite a bit. It's actually one of the reasons why I came to Vancouver and joined Zoic, is just having that balance in life of work and my own playtime to get back to. Because in the last year, I didn't really. I had some opportunities to go and do personal work. I just didn't have the enthusiasm because of work and being in a tiny freaking apartment in Toronto, which killed a lot of enthusiasm. And but the power of having personal work is definitely needed greatly for being in the VFX industry, I think.
I mean, the happier you are, typically, the more you would do that kind of stuff anyway. Like, I definitely know there was a point even before Matt hired me, and I had been poor for a long time, right? I left my job in 2012, went to university, networked, traveled all over. And so you were talking, it was nearly 8 years. I really didn't have full-time employment. And as soon as I started getting my first couple of paychecks, the whole thrill to get back into doing work after work automatically just came back. Like the fact I had money, like, because we talked about this, before we started recording as well, where when you have this constant fear or flight in your head of like, I don't have any money to eat, I can't pay my bills, like I can't contribute to my family or my partner, it just totally like throws you down the hill. So I was kind of climbing back up that again.
It does, which I've actually had thoughts about this a bit, because people always encourage that if you're trying to get into this industry, you have to go and make a portfolio. However, with making the portfolio, there's never the talk about what needs to be essential in your portfolio. It's just go and make something epic and amazing. But I don't think that's the actual reality of it. I think what you have to make to get a portfolio is what's necessary for doing the job. And I've encouraged that to a lot of juniors and people who want to become map painters, of like, if you want a job, you got to show that in your portfolio. It can't just be, hey, here's a cool piece of artwork, nobody's going to care. Like, pieces that are going to explain what your job is that you're wanting and show that you can do that quality that they're asking. And then once you get the job, then go and do personal work to then explore other avenues of what you want to be doing or see or whatever.
Yeah.
So flip it. And people don't do that. They want to just go and make personal artwork that's epic and amazing, but not relevant to getting the job.
No practical to what you're actually doing day to day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I know when I went to Max's talk, Max Berman, a couple of years back, he talked about leaving matte painting because, you know, it was just such a thankless job and the kind of like behind the scenes stuff that nobody really gets the credit for. And I think he was talking about working on like it was Godzilla, I think, at the time he was talking about working on, and he'd done this whole 8K shot of like this broken up ground thing and this whole destruction part where Godzilla had attacked. And then he showed the shot it was used on, and it was like in a TV in a store, like this big.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck that. I just spent like a week on that, like, holy shit. So it's difficult, I think, with matte painting because you've got to be prepared for thinking that you're not going to be. I mean, you get to work in these great shows, like you said, you've got to work in these great movies and stuff, but you know, and even then, I mean, you're lucky sometimes, depending on the studio, you might not actually get to release the shot you worked on. So sometimes you'll work on something and you'll never get to show it. You were pretty lucky with Justice League. You got to actually break down every kind of shot you worked on and put, you know, the thing up. And it's one of these things where, I mean, matte painting is a great career, and it's not to bash anybody who's doing it. I mean, it's great work, and it needs to be done. You know, if we want movies, of course, matte painting needs done. But is it a part of you still that, like, you think you still, like, matte painting is still something you want to focus on going into the future, or do you think you would want to shift, you know, as, you know, you're going forward?
Well, there's two answers to that, yes and no. I definitely like staying within matte painting, just because of the fact that with my strategy of what I'm trying to do of staying within just Photoshop and Nuke, I get the difficult Photoshop work that others can't do. And I like it because it tends to more often than not now become hero shots that a studio can now go like, hey, you know what, we have this great Photoshop person who can do Photoshop and Nuke. Let's, instead of doing all the 3D for, let's just give him the shot to go and paint it. And then I get it and I go after it. And then what's also great about it is when I freelance, I think I get pretty good matte painting work where it still takes up a majority of the screen. So I think it definitely works in my favor to what I want to be doing. At the same time, I do get like what happened with Max, where you spend months painting on something for it to be on a tiny little screen and then motion blurred out with a character right on top of it, and you're sitting there going, what the fuck? So and I've had that happen a few times, and it's a ball buster. And especially when they are you okay if I swear a little?
Oh yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, okay. Fuck it. When people like pixel fuck everything on your screen, and then just for everything else to just be cover it up in motion blur, and you're like, oh, great, this sucks.
Especially if you spend like a week to 2 weeks or something like on a shot, like it's a lot of work.
Yeah. So there is that part of me that's like, man, this sucks. Which is why I've been trying to like go into two separate avenues of the industry a little bit. One being art direction, because I really like what like Ash Thorpe and Sava have done with doing personal short films and art directing the crap out of it, and that letting them have their own way with companies and the projects that they get. So I definitely want to be getting into that avenue a little bit. But at the same time, I do like what there's probably a few matte painters. Oh, what's that?
Oh, sorry, something. I'm crossbeat here with other videos. Keep going. Yeah.
That there's kind of like Dussault or Matthew Renault and Mike Cattrall. These are matte painters who all they do is just Photoshop, but they're just so good at it that company will fly them across the world, pay them thousands and thousands of dollars to come in for a day and paint the shot. And so I'm trying to have like both of those avenues a little bit of matte painting and art direction, and just see which one leads me to just being more fulfilled artistically.
Yeah. I mean, art direction is always, I think, an end goal for a lot of people who work in the industry. It's one of the jobs where you're getting to creatively really decide a lot of big key moments and things in movies, games, and depending on what you're working on. But yeah, I think art direction is one of the things you build for years and years. But I mean, it depends. There's obviously some people who early on can prove themselves really quickly and get thrown into something and handle it quite well. So you get to, art direct at a young age. But I mean, I think it just depends on your level of dedication, your level of passion. I mean, it's like we talked about these guys who worked, the 16-hour days for a whole year. But then there's I know people like Sava's one of those people who can just work tirelessly and just seems to burn. He's full of energy constantly. Like he just never seems to really tire.
Well, he has the added benefit of living in a cheap country, though, where he can only work for like 6 months and then has the other 6 months. But at the same time, you're right. He does work a lot, though.
100%. Like
make
it's,
it.
I mean, even in Serbia, like it's. I mean, it depends on whereabouts, but like, I think the price is all comparative. I mean, even within the UK, I mean, there's some parts that will be cheaper, some are more expensive. But I think Sav also gets paid so much on some of these projects that, like, he still gets the So it just depends. It's always perspective, but there's definitely people in the industry who are, we call them unicorns. It's the rare people, the guys that you see rarely, who like Rafa Grisey, in between, art directing God of War 2 for Sony Santa Monica, he's also knee deep in NFT land and making millions doing that. So, I know guys that just, I mean, they still sleep, they still have a family, they still have kids, but like, they just have such a brain wired to work that, they skyrocket through the stratosphere and do amazing things. But I think that's the problem with a lot of artists I see, even within matte painting, especially when Max was coming out with his course and stuff, people thought that it would be this whole rock star lifestyle, and once you get involved in matte painting, like, you'll be working in Star Wars, you'll be working in, Mandalorian, you'll be doing all these cool shots for ILM, and it's not always the reality, right? You're not going to get
not always. Sometimes you're, I won't say it.
You started in commercials, right? Like just stuff, TV ads and stuff, right?
Yeah, commercials wasn't too bad. I quite enjoyed it. I mean, the turnaround's quick, sure, but you don't have 10 supervisors pixel fucking your painting, and all of them disagree on how it should be painted. Like, no, fuck off. Like, just let me paint it.
Straightforward compared to films.
So there is advertisement is kind of fun. I do kind of miss it sometimes, but I enjoy film where it's like, here you just get handed a big shot and it's like, hey, we need this painted.
ASAP.
And thankfully I've been given time to do that. But I definitely would like to get into more art direction, because I'm art directing my own IP of Peter Pan. And then on the side, I also am doing my own short film about an astronaut. And I've been art directing that for the last couple of years, working with the artist to build the assets and look dev of it and the story behind it. So I have been kind of hoping that with doing these two projects and releasing the short film first and some other paintings for Peter Pan, that I can eventually get into the role of being an art director just to see how it is. So because I've been kind of curious, I've been wanting to actually reach out to Ash about how are you doing your personal work and art directing? How are you doing this?
I mean, well, he's probably just got that whole thing where he's worked enough now, or gets enough work that he can take, like you say, some time off and focus on stuff. And I mean, because especially where he works within the US and the projects he works on, pay is probably really good, and he's probably getting to a point where he's done 2 or 3 projects over the first 6 months, and then he gets time, afterwards to run the podcast, do personal work. So I mean, the truth that you really know is that if you're dedicated enough, you will find the time, right? You will carve out, enough time that, like, I want to work on this. I'm going to take some time tonight. I'm going to sit down for a couple of hours, work on this. And then you're so focused in that, like, you're not going to fuck about on your computer. You're not going to procrastinate, sit on your phone. You'll just switch off and like, or
Go.
switch on even and sit and do the work for 3-4 hours solid before you go to bed. I mean, I know guys that, even Matt, the guy I work for just now, like, when he was young and he was starting in the industry, he was basically doing like a full shift at his work, 8, 9, 10 hours in the studio, and then coming home and sitting all night drawing or making a. In fact, with Zamzi especially, like he was doing that from college, all the way from college to present day. So yeah, he used to spend hours at night drawing the characters and drawing the worlds and making all that stuff up and writing some of the lore with Dr. Zamzi. So
Beast mode.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he got to a point, obviously, in his life, maybe in his mid to late 30s, where he was like, "I'm tired." but then, like, one of these things is that if you're dedicated enough, you will find the time. Even guys I know who have families, like they'll spend obviously the time they need to spend with their kids, and then as soon as they're sleeping, they'll sit in the office the rest of the night and work and stuff. So. Yeah, but you've got plenty of time, man. You're still young. You're just starting in the industry, really. I mean, you've just essentially just got your feet in the door. I mean, because when was it you really got your first gig properly? Was it 2015, 2016?
It was, I think it was 2016. Was my first job for advertisement. Yeah.
So I mean, and relatively, like 5 or 6 years, but like for a lot of people in the industry, that's nothing really. Like it's really
right.
starting. Yeah, like some guys I know who are supervisors or TDs on some projects have been in the industry 20 plus years. I mean, so it is. I mean, even me the same. Like I'm always like you. I'm always hoping I'd done better or more by now. But like I always look back and remember that like, I've only really been pushing myself 5 or 6 years anyway. So considering what I thought I would be at this time, and the fact
I am curious to see where I end up with it, just because you're right, you see people who've been in this for like 20 years and you're just like, how the hell did you do it for 20 years? And then you see people after 5 or 10 years who are like, yep, done it, move on, new career, let's just get out of this. And I think that's the majority of people. It's like after 10 or 12 years, they're just move on. So I'm definitely curious.
I think films specifically, the film industry really does. I've seen. You get it in games as well, obviously, but I think it's more common in film because, like you said, the turnaround is so quick, and even some of studios, if you're working for, people even say that with like, I'd love to work at ILM. Like, yeah, cool, but like, the workload, the pressure, like the amount of shots or stuff you're working on, like, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of hard work. If you're not ready for it, like, it will totally cripple you before you realize what's happening. So it's difficult.
Yeah, which I think kind of leads into what will happen. I don't even know how to specifically identify it with like all the different platforms for showing content. So like you have Hulu and YouTube Red, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, all same company, but like you have all these different platforms, and I kind of feel that like with the way it is going with the industry and with artists and such, that it's going to become more individualized of who can, not just the companies coming up with the ideas, but artists coming up with the ideas. So like actually what he's talked about in his podcast of like, we're in a renaissance of the digital age, which we are, but I do feel that is shifting into like the renaissance age of like art direction, because we have AI doing everything. We have Unreal where everything's photorealistic within seconds. Everyone is a generalist no matter what, pretty much. So either people become specialized in certain things to be called on by companies, or people end up becoming individual art directors doing their own stories and then selling it to whichever platform to become part of. So I kind of feel like artists are going to be getting into this world of which platform are you on, and what content do you create for them or for yourself, or do you make your own platform? And like we were talking about before we recorded about like Ben Morrow making his own
Huxley,
with Huxley. and how that's kind of blown up a little bit into Sava art directing the trailer for it. And so now that might, I mean, I don't exactly know what's happening with it, but maybe just theoretically that could go to YouTube Red or whoever for its own platform with its own team and whatever. So I definitely feel like we're still in the Renaissance era of technology, but I think that's shifting into like individual, like just an individual renaissance of what do you as the creator make for the platforms. I think.
I mean, it's one of these things. I think, like you said, but even with what I'm working on just now with Dr. Zamzi, like, you know, Matt's whole world that he's built over the last 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, you know, we're pitching that just now to, I mean, it's public knowledge. We do a podcast about it every week, but yeah, we've been pitching that to different studios about the animated series. We've just finished writing the treatment for the first series, which is actually it's hilarious. Actually, it's been a really good script. And the studio we're working with are up in Canada. Actually, I need to find out what they're called again. But yeah, so you know, we've been pitching that. We've also been pitching to movie studios about the movie, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago on our podcast, the Dr. Zamzi podcast, about how we might have had Pierce Brosnan attached to it to playing Dr. Zamzi and stuff. So there's a whole thing where, like, you know, now Matt's built his own world that he's now pitching to people, and if that gets picked up, then that's his own individual thing. That's, you know, so I think you've had this whole era of people working in the industry for 20 plus years now, and you've got to a point where those guys are sick of working for other people, so now they want to make their own thing.
Exactly.
So now it's, yeah, because Ben's been at 343 and working on Halo for so many years, but now he's obviously in the background been building his own thing, and now that's coming right. So yeah, there's going to be a whole slew of stuff, and obviously your stuff with Neverland, and you know, it might not happen soon, but maybe 10 years, 5 years, whatever, you know, you might get an opportunity to do more shots and then pitch it someday, and it might get picked up. So yeah.
I've been in the chats with Netflix about it for Peter Pan a little bit, and a few showrunners and producers about it. So nothing has really happened with it quite yet, just because I've been wanting to do a lot of the art direction for myself and build the lore and write everything, build the art Bible for it all. Just, oh God, it has been. But it's been really interesting because you really dig into other avenues and rabbit holes that you're just like, oh wow, I didn't like look at that. How did we didn't know that we had other planets or other worlds or other fictional characters that ended up correlating or whatever. So it is a little interesting and fun to get into, but it is a lot of work though.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think it will be worth it because seeing like what Ben Morrow has done and Sava and Ash and Mache have done, everyone doing their own thing, I think the general audience has definitely liked it more than what Netflix or Disney have done, because they're just doing the same content, just slightly differently almost. So it's kind of why I think like the era we're getting into is going to be much more who's got original ideas and what are you doing with it, and who's got the best world designs and ideas to bring to the screen. And with it, you're going to be like your own team, kind of like Sava, where he has his own small little VFX team to build everything. And then he gets to have like all the control and say of what happens with it. So I think that's going to definitely be increasing with artists all over the world. And thankfully we have some really good leaders with it to kind of follow a little bit.
Yeah, and funny talking about the Huxley trailer because you know, Steve Corman, friend of the show, he worked on a lot of these shots as well. So yeah, there's definitely a cool little unit that Sava's built up when people he knows and work on that stuff. But yeah, everything Sava does is crazy good. Like he's still one of the few guys I want to get on. You know, he's on the bucket list. I want to get him on the show, but he's always working, man. So the only time the last time I saw Sava was at Trojan Horse and Unicorn THU in 18 just after I graduated in Mola. It was the last time I saw him and spoke to him. But then, of course, the world went to shit shortly after that. Managed to go to LA in 2019, but then everything else just died. So yeah, it's been. Yeah, we were talking about trying to go to Playgrounds this year or something because it's been nearly 3 years now, I think, before I've had an event. So
yeah, I'm really hoping that Playgrounds happens or the D2 conference. Same with Trojan. I would really like to go to one of those this year. It is on my bucket list to be a speaker one day on one of those, but it would be great to be able to get back to those platforms and see people again.
Yeah. I just want to catch up with people and just have a drink, man. Like it was funny. I was talking to a couple of dudes earlier about some of the events, and they were saying there's a point in your life when you go to them initially where you're at every talk and you're talking to every person and networking, but then eventually, so many years later, you go back to them. It's just about getting pissed with someone. Like you just want to catch up with people and just have a drink because you get sick talking about work and talking about the industry. You just want to have a good time and chill with your friends. So. Yeah, because we kind of tried to organise that. I think even pre-COVID, we were thinking about coming across the THU in Europe.
Yeah, I really wanted to. Because I would like to.
It's a lot of cash to get to Europe for you. So.
Oh God, yeah, especially being in Vancouver now, it's even way more.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, we can try and figure something out. I mean, I know. Because THU happened this year, definitely, even during the pandemic, because they've moved back to Lisbon now, in Portugal. So they're kind of back where they were originally. And they had it this year. Everybody said it was really good to catch up and stuff. But if they're having one again this year, I wouldn't mind trying to go here because it's a nice country. It's a beautiful place they have. It's really nice, the place in Lisbon they have as well, because it's like a small island that typically is busy with tourists. But when they have the event, it's on the off season. Yeah. So the whole thing is pretty much dead. So when people go there, they have pretty much the whole island to themselves.
Wow.
Plus the place that they obviously hold it at, so which has a garden and really nice bits you can sit in and talk to people. And
do you know when it will be this year? Or
it would probably be. I'm trying to remember the last. When did we go? I'm sure it was October last year.
I was going to say September or October.
Yeah,
because Playgrounds is always generally in October.
Some time around then, yeah. I think they try and plan all these things in the off season or like the times that aren't summer because you don't want to pay crazy prices for flights and hotels. And, main event 2020. So so the 19th to the 24th of September this year, and no in Lisbon. Sorry, correct me. I'm an idiot. Troia, Portugal. Because that's obviously where the Trojan horse was where the myth comes from there. Get a reminder. Tickets on sale in 19 days. Oh shit, soon. So I might try.
Sorry to cut you off. Isn't that where you actually did that video with Dylan Cole?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was
it.
Yeah. Dylan was a speaker that year. He done a whole talk on, which is rare because he hardly does talks and goes to events and stuff. So
I wish I could have seen that talk.
I mean, it was funny though because he just basically kind of walked through a lot of his process, but then it was one of these things where he tried to do something kind of live in Photoshop. Know that he was struggling, but like there was some things where he was kind of like he was having hiccups and he wasn't quite doing it right, and then he was like, "I swear to God, I'm Dylan Cole. Like I swear, like honestly, I know what I'm doing. I swear to God, like please don't judge me." He was like missing menus and he couldn't find buttons. He was like, "Oh my God, like I don't know what I'm doing." So that was funny.
I feel I would be in the same boat of that. Like, I know how to do this. I promise.
I know it adds a whole other element of pressure basically when you're doing those things live talks. Like you get so distracted with the fact that there's like 1,000 people in the room, like you freeze. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, September this year. And the good thing with where is in Troia in Portugal, like it's always warm there. So like even in September, it will still be like going on an holiday. So I might try and go this year. I might make the journey. Because I've always wanted to go back. Because like I said, 2018 is the last time I went. 2018 was the first time I went, and it was the last time. 2019 never happened because I spent all my money going to Lightbox in LA. Hang with Raf and the guys over there, which is great because I got to meet so many of the American guys I never met, and got to tour Riot. I got to go through Sony and Blizzard. Got to have a tour at Blizzard and stuff. So that was a whole thing, and I really loved being there. It was awesome just to see it. Didn't dig the city totally. Like it wasn't like a whole thing for me. Like LA was a bit dirty. The whole place wasn't a great place to be. But It was
I've
nice.
heard stories about LA.
Yeah.
Not sure I'd want to be there, but
No,
I'd rather
I'm
be
the
in
same.
Portugal.
Even just the money to live there. Like one of my
Yeah.
buddies, Lydia, was at Riot, and she was an environment artist there. But I think the flat she was in, she was sharing it with 2 other people, and she was still like $2,000 a month, like for rent. Crazy money, like just so much cash. So yeah, I can. She's moved up to Seattle now. She's at Valve. So, but yeah, like the money in LA, like stupid, just so much. I mean, when people talk about these crazy wages people get paid, I'm like, yeah, but they live in California, so like, rent plus healthcare plus everything else, like, your money will soon disappear. But
pretty much.
So how you find in Vancouver then? Like, is it? I mean, because you were in Toronto, right, not too long ago. So is it a big difference or?
Very big difference. Vancouver is. It kind of feels like being back at home in Minnesota a little bit. It's kind of like a mix of Chicago and Minneapolis. So I definitely like it. It's been easy to walk around everywhere.
Cool.
Toronto was really nice, but I kind of felt like it was living in LA, even though I've never been there, based on like what people have said about LA, that like anyone.
Busy, or?
Yeah, it not only busy, but just like everyone you meet's fake.
Right.
And that was just all over Toronto.
Right.
And it kind of just didn't really make it that enjoyable walking around seeing people like this.
Right.
And there just wasn't a lot to go around in Toronto.
Interesting. Yeah. Were you right in the center of Toronto, or were you kind of outside?
Pretty much. I was pretty much in the center of it. But it was still a gorgeous city. It was very beautiful. It was easy to walk around everywhere. Great dog parks, and I love dogs, so it was nice. I just needed, with being in Vancouver, just more space, just breathe and walk around, and like with this apartment, I have, as you can see, kind of windows that wrap around the whole apartment.
I was going to say it's very light.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and having all the light definitely feels so much better and just impacts your mood.
You're in darkness. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, you need. It's funny though. I was even watching a thing recently where it was a woman I follow who moved to like basically the middle of nowhere. Like she was in a cabin in the woods almost by herself. I think the nearest town was like 10 miles away, and she'd lived kind of in the city all her life, so she was trying to do the opposite, where she was trying to escape and get away from things. But now she's releasing a blog where she's like she's missing people, she's missing interaction, she's craving attention from people and wanting to talk to someone. So I think it's where these things where people try to seek extremes, where they're like, oh, I'm going to go live in the woods, or I'm going to live in the middle of the city where there's everything to do. And I think it's one of these things where, like everything in life, you need balance, right? You need enough social interaction that it satisfies your brain, but you need enough quiet time where you can do your own thing as well and distress for all the interaction that you've just done. So it's a hard balance. And sometimes you move to cities, you're like, oh, this is going to be great, like I'll have my space, plus I'll get to go out, in the middle of the city and enjoy the nightlife. But some cities you can move to are just like, it's so intense, it's too much for your brain to handle. You're like, I can't handle all this, the lights, the sounds.
Yeah, definitely. So it's being here, it definitely has been a nicer work-life balance. And with being able I live literally like a minute from the beach.
Oh, cool.
So I go,
beaches? What the fuck?
Yeah. So I'm like right next to it. So it's been great just to go for a walk with my girlfriend and just go for a walk, go for bike rides. We're right next to a bakery where they make fresh bread every single day. And at the end of the day, any bread that's left over, they give to a homeless shelter.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So it's definitely been a nicer work-life balance here. And it's been allowed me.
Is the weather extreme or?
It's mostly rainy and cloudy.
Right.
But I don't mind it. I mean, I personally love rain. I love the smell of rain. So
being from Chicago, that much. You guys are on the coast, so. But it's funny though, because I remember I spoke to Moses way back in the day, Moses and Fleur, and he went from living in Miami to working in Canada, and I think I don't know if it's Toronto or Vancouver he was in. But he talked about one day walking to his work. It was so cold. He basically passed out and face down in the snow because he was walking to his work. It was so cold. Because I know in Toronto, I think you get really bad winters, like heavy snow.
It's more
I don't know
than anything.
Yeah. Vancouver, I take it pretty mild then compared to Toronto.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we had a little bit of snow, but it was like a centimeter, and that was it.
Nothing really, but yeah, that's crazy as well. Because I mean, I'm in Scotland, obviously, which is one of the fucking coldest places on earth. But I remember talking to people about Canada, and there was always see these pictures of people who have got like have to drive through like the 50-foot snow drifts that are like plowing through and everything. So that's the only thing I've ever thought about moving to Canada is like how fucking cold it would be all the time. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the worst we had it this year was like -2, maybe -3 at a push, but.
Jesus.
Yeah, but that's Celsius, right? That's not even Fahrenheit. But I've heard in Canada sometimes some places can get to like -20, like -18, like really bad.
I think this year we had -30, close
Jesus
to it.
Christ. Oh my god!
Where even with all our heaters on, it was still cold in the apartment. So we're like, well, great.
Yeah, just sitting blankets the whole day. Oh my
Pretty
god.
much.
Yeah.
But it's been nice so far with I mean, I don't mind the rain. I like it. It's been easy to get everywhere. I definitely feel happier being here.
Are you driving as well? Or you got a car for commuting, or is that bike
God,
behind you like your only thing that you're using?
That's my only thing, yeah.
Yeah. Well, is it quite easy, like a good city to bike around to take it? Or?
Everyone here has bikes. Everyone here has bikes.
God, yeah. I wish that was like in Scotland. We've got a real problem with just everybody has a car. Everybody has like 2 or 3 cars, and everybody drives everywhere. Everywhere you walk, you can just constantly smell fumes, fuel exhaust. It's ridiculous. So, I hate it.
I like having the bikes, and we're a 10-minute bike ride from Stanley Park, which is a park bigger than the city itself.
Oh wow!
And the city's right next to it, which is perfect.
Cool.
So it was definitely a nice choice moving here. The studio's been great. The projects are great. I'm getting back to personal work. I would like to get back to mentoring people about matte painting, and see where it leads me.
Yeah, I mean, because we can talk about that for a little bit, but you're an active member in the matte paint community. If you guys don't know who are listening, Ian works with a bunch of dudes who run I think is it mattepaint.org? Is that still the address? .com?
It was .com, but mattepaint.org closed. They had to shut down.
Oh, okay.
And Conrad or Matte Paint took a hold of it, got it.
Oh, okay.
Thankfully, just to keep all the archives of all the old paintings.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were going to close it down if nobody bought it or took it. We'll delete everything.
Lucky then they got it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Conrad really did a good job of getting and preserving it, just because it's got so much history of old matte painters.
Yeah.
So it definitely kind of saved it a little bit.
Jesus. Yeah, well, mattepaint.com anyway, so that's still there. You guys can check that out. I'll leave the links below anyway. But like, yeah, you guys do a whole kind of online school mentor thing where you can go and learn how to matte paint, and you guys will help out the community. There's a lot of people that will help teach, and even like you're at the higher echelon, but there's a lot of guys underneath you or lower who will also help, and there's lots of feedback, and people will offer help on shots and stuff. And yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Conrad's been running that pretty much since you've been starting, like, so yeah, about 5 or 6 years in that as well. So yeah. And Conrad is also a guy, friend of the podcast, I've had him on as well, who is he still matte painting, or is he now fully in the website?
He's doing both.
Right.
He freelances for matte painting, I believe.
Right, cool.
Still a bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So yeah, he's still there. Is he still in? Did he move back to Australia?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Remember there was talk about it. I mean, again, it's been ages since I've caught up with Conrad as well, like a long time. It was funny. The first time I spoke to him in years, he was. I think he commented on that post I put out about the Ukraine not too long ago, a couple of days ago, and I was like, "Oh shit, Conrad, what's happening?" Yeah, it was just to correct me anyway. It was the only reason he came in at the comments, just to correct me. But yeah, I've not spoken to him for a while either, a couple of years. Yeah, that whole kind of crew, like, yeah, because obviously at one point I thought that's what I was going to do and tried to get involved and stuff, but then it didn't. But yeah, there was a bunch of good dudes that were on there and working away, and it's a good community. So
it's never too late to learn matte painting.
No, or for me, I don't know. It's I mean, the thing is, I know the problem with me, and I know this through my life experience, is just who I am. That anything I turn my hand to, if I really set my mind on something, I know I can do absolutely anything I want to do. And I've kind of done it, leave my job, go back to university, getting the career I have now. Like, so many people say I would fail, and now I'm working for a studio in LA. But like the film industry scares me. I think that's the only thing, because one of my dreams is working in Star Wars, right? That's still a huge dream of mine. But the film industry does terrify me. And I think it's one of these things where I've heard so many negative experiences versus good experiences. I know obviously you've got to pick your studios, and there's certain places that are better than others, but I definitely have heard so many horror stories that I'm kind of like, yeah.
I think it really just depends on the person, because it's Victoria and I had the same influence where people just told us horror stories, and it really made it off-putting. But I think it really is just individual dependent of just how do you react to it, how do you take it, how do you deal with the stress of it, and also with like the studio at that location with the people that are just there. So it really is, there's so many variables into it, it's hard to say. But I mean, just for anyone listening, I guess if you hear stories about the industry, yeah, sure, a bunch might be true and whatever, but find out for yourself, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same with games. Even before I got into that, it's kind of avenue. People were saying, crunch and working weekends, and I think because like the film industry, it's still so new. People are kind of figuring things out as they go. But more and more people I talk to now, especially within games, studios are changing their culture and definitely try to be more accommodating to people and helping, with
they are
with equal rights and equal measure for people working, and paid holidays and breaks, and trying not to enforce crunch and making the working weeks a bit easier on people. So like it's one of these things where I think so many people see the horror stories that existed 20 years ago, but the industry has kind of moved on, and I think it's the same with film. The way it was going, or the way it's still going, the bubble will eventually burst, and we're going to have to try and reset. But until then, you just have to be, keep your head in a swivel and try not to get sucked in with the whole lure of getting to work in cool shows. Like, you just have to always make sure that you're looking after yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's getting better. I mean, with the UK put up a huge thing about being paid OT now.
Yeah.
So that's getting better, and people are getting more rights with things. And I've also kind of noticed people are talking a lot nicer to each other.
Yeah.
And just generally being much more respectful.
More unionization in some companies as well. People are really pushing for that as well. So
which I think is absolutely key. I mean, it's I've had a supervisor hovering over me, literally over me, telling me how to paint a pixel.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, we've talked about, like, this guy walked into the room and literally told the entire department that if he could fire us, he would.
Oh yeah.
And and that he personally did not like matte painters. So like, and then this guy was hovering over me, telling me how to paint a pixel, and was like, if you don't do what I tell you, you're going to get fired. And I'm like, well, great.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the horror story stuff. That's the stuff that you worry about, because it's difficult. I mean, it depends on, I think, maybe the discipline you do as well. Like, I know a couple of guys who worked in film as modelers, and I've had decent experiences and stuff. So I think it really just depends, because matte painters, I think, are so niche that it's a thing where people feel like they've got power over them because they're the smaller contributor. Even though equally important, that maybe there's only 2 or 3 of them in the studio, so they feel like they're outcast sometimes. But I mean, there's even techniques within matte painting, though, you can learn even within 3D and 2D, that you could lend to other skills as well. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you've done some concept and stuff as well, so it's not like you're always tied to just doing matte painting stuff all the time. So
yeah,
it's
a good variety of stuff. Just gotta give it a shot.
There's a bunch of opportunities, especially if you're willing to learn. If you really want to dig in and learn a lot of good programs, then there's a lot of opportunity for people to do stuff, because studios are always hungry for people, because there's so much turnaround on projects that if you're good enough, then you'll be getting infinite amount of offers through the door for people to want to work with you. So as long as you're not a dick to work with, of course, that's always a key element.
Yeah, definitely.
Not being an asshole. So cool. Yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah, I think it's a good point to kind of cut it. But if you guys have any questions or any comments you want to leave down below for Ian, you can drop them in. He always runs by the YouTube channel. You can always check out stuff. I'm sure he'll reply to them if you leave them in leave us a like, give us a share. It's always great if you're listening. Of course, we have a video version as well on YouTube that we do that uploads as well as the audio podcasts on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. So you guys can check us out over there. Thanks to Ian coming on again. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. And just if anyone has questions about map painting or the industry or trying to figure out how things work, just let me know. I'm more than happy to help out.
Yeah, definitely. You can contact Ian. I'll leave all his socials below and his ArtStation and stuff, and I'll include links to map paint as well, of course, because that's a big component of what you guys do as well. And you guys can check all that stuff out as well. And that's pretty much us for this week, guys. Thanks for listening so far. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for Ian coming on, and see you guys later. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.